There's a certain kind of person who will destroy your peace, watch you bleed emotionally, and still find a way to make you feel guilty for it. They'll twist logic, reframe reality, and disguise their pride as self-respect, all to avoid saying two simple words, "I'm sorry." But the truth is, their inability to apologize isn't about arrogance. It's about fear. Because for them, an apology isn't just admitting a mistake, it's surrendering control. It's facing the fragile ego they've spent a lifetime protecting. Deep down, they equate "I'm sorry" with "I'm weak." And in their world, weakness is death. So instead, they rewrite stories, shift blame, and project guilt onto the very people who cared enough to hold them accountable. What makes this even darker is that these people often know they've done harm. They feel it, but they bury it under excuses. The psychology behind that silence is one of the most manipulative defense mechanisms there is: self-preservation disguised as strength. This video dives into that dark psychology, why some people can't apologize, how they manipulate empathy to protect their ego, and what it means for those who keep waiting for an apology that will never come. If you've ever been made to feel crazy for expecting basic accountability, this one's for you. Subscribe to Brainy Empath for deeper insights into emotional intelligence, boundaries, and healing from toxic dynamics. And tell me in the comments, have you ever noticed how the people who hurt you most are always the ones who can't say, "I'm sorry"? Apology as surrender. To someone with a fragile ego, an apology isn't a bridge, it's a battlefield. The moment they say "I'm sorry," they feel like they've laid down their armor, exposed their softest part, and invited humiliation. In their mind, apology equals defeat. It means losing moral ground, control, and the illusion of superiority they've carefully built. So instead of apologizing, they retreat behind pride, silence, or intellectual justifications. They turn mistakes into debates and guilt into confusion, anything to avoid the unbearable feeling of vulnerability. These people weren't born without empathy. They learned early that admitting fault meant punishment, shame, or rejection. Somewhere along the way, they equated being wrong with being worthless. So now, even a simple apology feels like self-erasure. The words get stuck in their throat, not because they don't know how, but because saying them would crack the identity they're desperate to protect. They survive by rewriting the story. "I didn't hurt you, you misunderstood me." It's their subconscious way of keeping control over the emotional narrative. You'll notice how they twist the moment. Instead of saying, "I hurt you," they'll say, "You're too sensitive." Instead of "I was wrong," they'll say, "I didn't mean it like that." The goal isn't resolution, it's protection. They're defending an image, not repairing a relationship. To them, admitting fault would expose the small, terrified self they've hidden under layers of confidence and logic. But what they don't understand is that refusing to apologize doesn't make them strong. It keeps them small. It traps them in emotional immaturity, locked behind walls of pride and justification. Every non-apology deepens the loneliness they are trying so hard not to feel. And for the empath who loves them, that silence becomes a quiet kind of heartbreak because you can sense the remorse buried under the denial. In the end, their inability to say "I'm sorry" isn't about you. It's a reflection of a person at war with their own ego, terrified that accountability might kill the illusion of who they think they must be to survive. Blame shifting as emotional self-defense. For people who can't apologize, blame shifting becomes a reflex, a psychological shield that protects them from the unbearable weight of guilt. The moment accountability enters the room, their mind scrambles for an escape hatch. They'll twist the story, flip the logic, and point the spotlight back at you before you even realize what happened. It's not always loud or obvious. Sometimes it's hidden inside gentle phrases like, "I wouldn't have reacted that way if you hadn't done that," or "You know how sensitive you can be." Every word is engineered to transfer emotional responsibility, to make you question your own perception, while they quietly rebuild their sense of control. This defense mechanism runs deeper than manipulation. It's rooted in fear, the fear of feeling flawed, exposed, or unlovable. To them, taking blame is like standing naked under judgment, and their ego simply can't survive that level of vulnerability. So instead, they use psychological sleight of hand. If you're the one who caused their behavior, they stay safe from introspection. They rewrite events to protect their self-immune, not to harm you, though harm is always the result. Empaths often get caught in this cycle because they instinctively analyze emotions. When someone says, "You made me do this," an empath's mind goes inward. Was I too harsh? That's exactly how blame shifting works. It weaponizes empathy. The manipulator deflects accountability while the empath absorbs it, carrying pain that was never theirs to begin with. Over time, this dynamic erodes confidence and distorts reality, making you apologize for things you didn't do, while they stay comfortably unexamined. But beneath the control lies fragility. Blame shifting isn't confidence, it's cowardice wrapped in logic. These individuals can't face the mirror, so they turn it toward you, and the more you see through it, the more desperate their tactics become. They'll gaslight, exaggerate, or resurrect old wounds, anything to avoid the quiet horror of realizing they were wrong. The truth is, people who constantly shift blame aren't trying to win, they're trying to survive. Accountability feels like annihilation to a fragile ego. And until they learn that admitting fault doesn't destroy worth, they'll keep passing the guilt around like a burning coal, terrified to be the one left holding it. Moral displacement, rewriting reality to stay innocent. When someone incapable of apology feels cornered by truth, they don't face it, they rewrite it. It's not always malicious, it's psychological self-preservation. Their mind bends the story, rearranging facts until they no longer look like the villain. It's a subtle but powerful defense mechanism called moral displacement, the art of shifting right and wrong to protect one's ego. To them, being wrong threatens their entire identity. So instead of accepting fault, they construct a new version of reality where their actions were justified, their intentions pure, and you the one who overreacted. They'll retell the same event with careful edits. "I only said that because you pushed me. It wasn't that bad. You're remembering it wrong." Each phrase is a brick in the fortress of false innocence they build to guard their self-amuse. They can't emotionally tolerate being the bad one, so they become the storyteller. And the story always ends in their favor. What makes this manipulation so insidious is how believable it sounds. They believe their own revision. Over time, their lies blend with memory until even they can't tell the difference between truth and defense. For empaths, this distortion feels like drowning in confusion. You start questioning your recollection, replaying conversations, doubting your emotional clarity. That's the power of moral displacement. It doesn't erase reality, it replaces it with one that makes you feel guilty for remembering correctly. To maintain their innocence, they distort your truth. To feel righteous, they make you feel cruel. And the more you defend yourself, the more they use your words as proof that you're the unstable one. But beneath that manipulation is something tragic. Shame masquerading as morality. These people can't sit with guilt long enough to learn from it, so they twist it into justification. It's not that they lack morals, it's that their self-worth depends on being good even when they're not. Admitting harm would collapse the fragile identity they've built around being right, kind, or misunderstood. So they live inside a story that absolves them, a carefully constructed illusion where every hurt was an accident and every consequence someone else's fault. But reality doesn't disappear just because it's rewritten. It waits quietly. And when the rewritten version finally breaks against the truth, the innocence they fought so hard to protect becomes the very lie that exposes them. Shame avoidance masquerading as principle. People who can't apologize often disguise their avoidance of shame as principle. They cloak their fear of being wrong under noble-sounding beliefs. "I don't apologize for being honest," "I stand by my decisions," or "I refuse to be manipulated by guilt." To the untrained ear, it sounds confident, grounded, even admirable. But beneath that righteousness lies something far more fragile, the terror of shame. They aren't defending integrity, they're hiding from humiliation. To them, admitting fault doesn't feel like growth, it feels like collapse. Shame burns too deeply to face directly, so they wrap it in conviction. The ego turns fear into philosophy. If I call it strength, it won't feel like weakness. This is where emotional immaturity hides in plain sight. Their principles aren't grounded in truth, their psychological armor built to deflect guilt before it can land. They'll even twist morality itself to fit their narrative, claiming that others are too emotional, too dramatic, or trying to make them feel bad whenever accountability is brought up. The irony is that these people genuinely believe they're doing the right thing. The story they tell themselves is one of self-respect and boundaries, but it's actually a carefully crafted lie that keeps them emotionally numb. They can't tell the difference between protecting their dignity and protecting their ego, and so every opportunity for connection becomes a courtroom, every disagreement a threat to their identity. For the empath, this is emotional exhaustion in disguise. You'll try to reach them with empathy, logic, patience, but all you'll find is a wall of self-righteous calm. You can feel the shame underneath it trembling like a frightened child behind a mask of control, but you can't help someone who interprets vulnerability as danger. This kind of person doesn't heal through confrontation. They heal through reflection, which they avoid at all costs. Their principles keep them safe, but also alone, because when strength is just shame wearing armor, connection becomes impossible. True principle requires humility. Real strength admits when it's wrong. But for those who can't apologize, conviction is just camouflage, a way to feel powerful while avoiding the one feeling that could actually set them free. Shame-faced, not hidden. The strategic minimization of your pain. When someone who can't apologize is confronted with your pain, they don't meet it, they shrink it. Not because they don't see it, but because acknowledging it would mean accepting responsibility for causing it. So instead, they downplay, rationalize, or even mock what you feel. It's not empathy they lack, it's tolerance for guilt. And so their words become surgical tools designed to carve your emotions into something smaller, more manageable, something they can live with. You'll hear phrases like, "you're overreacting," or "it wasn't that serious," or the classic, "I didn't mean it like that." These aren't misunderstandings. They're deliberate recalibrations of reality. By minimizing your hurt, they protect themselves from the unbearable reflection that says, "I caused this." It's a subtle, calculated form of control. If they can make you question the validity of your feelings, they can stay blameless. They don't need to apologize if your pain isn't that deep. For empaths, this tactic cuts twice, once through the wound itself, and again through the isolation that follows. You start to wonder if maybe they're right. Maybe you are too sensitive. Maybe your pain doesn't matter as much as it feels. That's the trap. Self-doubt replaces anger, and they escape through the fog of your confusion. They've turned your compassion against you, convincing you that your expectations are the problem, not their action. But the truth is clear beneath their deflection. People who minimize pain do it because they recognize it. They see it too clearly and it terrifies them. Minimization is their last line of defense against empathy, because empathy would shatter the illusion of innocence. To admit your pain is to admit their impact, and to accept their impact is to face the guilt they've spent their lives running from. Over time, you realize their indifference isn't emotional strength, it's emotional cowardice. They're not calm, they're disconnected, they're not rational, they're avoiding the mirror. And the more they minimize your pain, the louder their avoidance becomes. Eventually, you stop explaining, you stop justifying, you stop begging them to see it, because the moment you realize that your pain never needed to be small enough for them to handle, that's the moment you begin to heal, and they begin to face the truth they've always run from. Apology as currency. For people who can't genuinely apologize, "I'm sorry" isn't an expression of remorse, it's a transaction. It's not about healing or accountability, it's about regaining leverage. When they finally do say the words, it's never spontaneous or sincere. It's timed, calculated, a move in a psychological game where the goal isn't reconnection, but control. To them, an apology is currency, something to spend only when the return on investment is worth it. You'll notice how their apologies always appear when they need something: forgiveness, access, reputation, or sympathy. It comes wrapped in emotional theatrics. "I've been thinking a lot about what happened," or "I just want to make things right." But if you look closely, it's never about your pain. It's about their discomfort with disconnection. They're not apologizing because they care about what they did. They're apologizing because they can't stand being excluded from your emotional world. In the narcissistic mind, guilt is useless unless it serves a purpose. So they use apology the way a politician uses promises to reset trust just long enough to stay in power. They'll sprinkle just enough sincerity to make you doubt your instincts. For the empath, this creates a dangerous illusion of change, a flicker of hope that maybe this time they mean it, but soon the cycle repeats. Once they've regained your warmth, your attention, your empathy, the apology vanishes, replaced by the same old behavior. The words were never meant to heal you, they were meant to reset the board. What's darker is how they weaponize your forgiveness. They'll later remind you, I said sorry, what more do you want? As if remorse were a debt that's been paid in full. It's emotional economics. You received your sorry, so now they're free from accountability. This is the hidden power play. Apology as manipulation, disguised as reconciliation. Real apologies cost something: ego, pride, comfort. But for them, that cost is too high unless there's a guaranteed return. They don't feel sorry for what they did, they feel sorry that it stopped working. So when their I'm sorry finally arrives, don't just listen to the words, watch the intent. Because in the hands of the emotionally immature, even remorse can become a weapon. And sometimes the most dangerous apologies are the ones that sound perfect but change nothing. Projection, turning their fault into your character flaw. When someone who can't face their own darkness feels guilt rising, they don't confront it, they throw it at you. It's one of the oldest psychological defense mechanisms in existence: projection. Instead of admitting fault, they rewrite the emotional script so that everything ugly in them becomes a reflection of you. Their selfishness becomes your ungratefulness. Their cruelty becomes your overreaction. Their manipulation becomes your drama. It's a chilling kind of emotional inversion. They cleanse their conscience by contaminating yours. Projection is how fragile egos survive the unbearable truth of imperfection. These people can't look in the mirror and see who they really are, so they turn everyone around them into mirrors instead. Every accusation they make secretly describes themselves. They'll say, "You're too controlling," while demanding your emotional obedience, or accuse you of dishonesty right after lying through their teeth. It's not logic, it's self-protection. If they can make you look like the problem, they don't have to deal with the shame of being one. For empaths, this is psychological quicksand. You start defending yourself, explaining, clarifying, trying to prove your innocence, not realizing that the very act of defending gives them power, because in their mind, your emotional reaction validates their projection. If you cry, you're too sensitive. If you get angry, you're unstable. The more you try to prove your good intentions, the guiltier you appear in the world they've rewritten. The truth is, projection isn't about you at all. It's their emotional mirror breaking under pressure. They can't metabolize guilt, so they externalize it, they turn their own flaws into weapons, and you become the target that absorbs what they can't face internally. It's easier for them to believe that you are toxic than to admit that they hurt someone they claim to care about. But here's the quiet power you hold. When you stop defending and start observing, projection loses its grip. Their words stop piercing because you see them for what they are: confessions in disguise. Every insult becomes a revelation, every accusation an admission. The moment you recognize that their anger is just misplaced shame, the spell breaks. Because projection only works when you play the part they've written for you. The moment you step out of their script, they're left face to face with the one thing they can't project away: the truth of themselves. Emotional immaturity hidden by charm. The most dangerous people who can't apologize don't look cruel, they look charismatic. They have the kind of charm that feels magnetic, disarming, even healing at first. Their smile carries confidence, their words flow effortlessly, and their empathy seems real. But beneath that polished exterior hides emotional immaturity so deep it's almost invisible. Their charm isn't warmth, it's camouflage. It's the mask that protects a fragile ego, terrified of exposure. They've spent years perfecting the art of likability because likability buys forgiveness before they ever have to ask for it. People around them are drawn to their presence, their humor, their confidence, and because of that, their flaws go unnoticed or excused. When they hurt someone, their charisma does the apologizing for them. They didn't mean it, they're just going through something. The charm becomes a social shield, ensuring they never have to develop emotional depth, accountability, or humility, the traits that true connection requires. Inside, though, they're emotionally stunted. They crave admiration, but fear intimacy. They can mimic vulnerability, but only in moments that maintain control. When you confront them, the mask shifts instantly. Charm turns cold, eyes sharpen, tone changes. They go from endearing to distant in a heartbeat because the facade can't survive scrutiny. Their charm was never built for truth, it was built for control. For empaths, this is the cruelest illusion. You sense both the surface warmth and the buried emptiness. You try to reach the real person beneath the persona, believing that your understanding can heal them. But emotional immaturity doesn't evolve through love alone. It evolves through accountability. And that's the one thing their charm ensures they'll never face. They've learned that performance gets them what growth requires: attention without change, forgiveness without effort. Eventually, you begin to see the cracks, the laughter that feels rehearsed, the empathy that stops where their comfort begins, the endless cycle of charm, hurt, denial, and charm again. And that's when the truth clicks. Their charisma isn't proof of depth, it's evidence of emptiness. Charm hides immaturity because it's easier to impress people than to heal yourself. But the longer they avoid the truth, the lonelier they become behind their performance. Because no matter how smooth the mask, emotional immaturity always shows itself in the silence after the laughter, where love was supposed to live but never did. In the end, people who can't apologize aren't heartless, they're haunted. Haunted by the fear of being wrong, by shame they've never learned to sit with, by a fragile ego that would rather destroy connection than risk vulnerability. They wear charm like armor, twist truth like strategy, and turn every mirror away from themselves, all to avoid the simple human act of saying, "I'm sorry." But behind that avoidance lies the deepest weakness of all: emotional fear disguised as strength. For the empath, understanding this isn't about excusing their behavior, it's about freeing yourself from it. You can't fix what refuses to face itself. You can't teach accountability to someone who sees it as defeat. The most powerful thing you can do is step out of their distortion and stand firm in your clarity. Their refusal to apologize is not a reflection of your worth, it's proof of their emotional limits. Healing starts when you stop waiting for closure from people incapable of giving it. Real peace doesn't come from hearing, "I'm sorry." It comes from realizing you no longer need it. If this spoke to you, remember, understanding darkness doesn't mean letting it consume your light. Subscribe to Brainy Empath for more deep insights into emotional awareness, boundaries, and healing through self-understanding. And tell me in the comments, what hurts more? Never hearing an apology or realizing it would never have been sincere anyway?